Hi there, Natalie with you today with a new process video for Pinkfresh Studio. And this is one of my first layouts using the new Let's Stay at Home collection. And this collection is divine, perfect to document all the good and bad, especially the good things that happen while in isolation. And here in Canada, we still are in a state of emergency, so we're still enjoying the beauty of our homes and our families and everything that comes with it. So I'm gonna use one of the pictures of my son to create this layout, and the inspiration for this layout is actually a circular sticker, and you're gonna see it in a bit. It has a tone of purple, so I want to create a really soft but really linear and fun background for my picture. And so I'm gonna just start by kind of building the idea, and I'm gonna use the abstract cube stamp set to create the background. But before I use it, I need to create a layer of kind of the base layer for my page. So I'm using heavy cardstock for this. I have not added yeso to it. This cardstock is from Vicky Boutin. It's actually really heavy cardstock, and it holds mixed media really nicely. And I'm gonna play with the liquid watercolors from Pinkfresh Studio to create my background. And like I said, I want to use the masculine tones of the collection for the background. So I'm gonna play with some of the sapphire, aquamarine, and sky blue. I'm using the sky blue just to create the watercolor impression for the page. For this, I am using a piece of acetate. You're gonna see that I added a few drops of the sky blue watercolor onto the acetate, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of water on it just to dilute it. I don't want it to be so concentrated. The liquid watercolors are really pigmented, so a little bit goes a long way. And also because I want a really soft impression of the watercolor on my background, I don't want something that stands out because I'm gonna add layers of mixed media on it. So to create or to use this method, you're gonna use a piece of plastic. You can use packaging, you can use a piece of acetate, you can use a transparency, whatever you have at hand. And you need something that is non-porous, which means it's not gonna soak up the water that you put on top of it, and it lets the water float. So I'm just adding, like I said, a few drops of the watercolor. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to dilute it, and then I'm literally gonna flip the acetate on top of the paper, and then kind of rock the acetate or just push it on top of the acetate with my fingers just to stretch the watercolor. And you're gonna see that even though it looks like it's a lot of water, in reality it's not lots. That's the beauty of working with a heavy cardstock. And then I'm gonna make sure that I stretch the water so I get a really soft impression, and I'm not gonna end up with a really warped paper because I'm not adding tons of water. So I'm gonna continue adding the watercolor until I have an impression that is a little bit bigger than my picture. I want to make sure that the watercolor shows. I don't want it to be the main attraction of the background, but I want it to be a little bit bigger so that everything that I put on top of it is gonna pop and stand out. And you're gonna see that I'm gonna place the bigger impression on the top right corner or the top right section of my layout, and then I'm going to replicate the same idea in a smaller scale on the bottom left corner of the page, and you're going to see that I kind of create a diagonal design for my paper. So like I said, very soft watercolor. I don't want something that's really saturated. I want something that's really light. And if I see a little bit of water that's left over that is causing the pulling on my paper, I'm just gonna take a piece of paper towel and soak it up, and I'll be okay. So the idea behind this layout, or why I chose this palette, you can say, is because I want to document a picture of my son. And my son is in second year of university. Unfortunately, due to COVID, there'll be no work for him this summer. He was gonna go into co-op, so that got canceled until next year. So he decided to take summer school, and because he's studying economics, which I know nothing about, he's doing it on his own. So his school looks like pajamas on top of a bed. There's lots of computers and laptops and iPads and phones, and he is enjoying that. And it's kind of scary, but it's a new normal. So I have quite a few pictures of him, and I pick one of them and actually transform it to black and white so that everything else doesn't compete and everything works nicely together. So now that I have my watercolor, I'm just gonna go back to the layout. I'm gonna set it aside to dry. Once it dried, I'm actually gonna bring, this is called the abstract square if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's called the abstract cube, sorry. It's one of the rubber stamps from Pinkfresh Studio, and you're gonna see that I prepped my paper with some anti-static powder because I'm actually gonna emboss some of this, or create some of this impression on my paper. For that, I am using embossing ink, clear embossing ink, but I'm not gonna stamp the entire image. In this case, I want to have the idea of a broken stamp on the background. So for that, I just added ink to certain parts of the stamp, and I just make sure that I added the impression. I clean my stamp, and then added more ink to just elongate it, especially on the right hand side of the page. And then I did the same thing. I cleaned it, and then I created a smaller scale for the title. You're gonna see the impression now that I add the embossing powder, and I'm using crisp white embossing powder because I want those white lines to show up. So you're gonna see it right now that when I shake off the powder, you'll be able to see the impression. And the only thing that you're gonna see me do is that when I created the first impression, I added ink to the top of my stamp, so I have a straight line. So all I'm gonna do is go with a dried watercolor brush just to clean up some of the powder and give me that broken impression on the paper. And after that, I'm gonna take it off camera and heat it with my heat gun to melt the embossing powder so you can see it. I don't know if you can look at it through the computer. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna start detailing some of the little rhomboids of the abstract cube stamp set impression that is already on my paper. And I'm gonna use for this, I'm gonna use sapphire, sky blue, and aquamarine watercolors. And you're gonna see that I'm gonna add a little bit or a little drop onto my piece of acetate. I'm gonna dilute it with water, and literally I'm gonna paint some, not everyone, some of the little rhomboids from the stamp impression. And I want to make sure that, I don't know, this is the only way that I can think, well, not the only way, one of the only ways that I can make the stamp design stand out. And my husband said it looks like rice is falling from the top of the page, and literally when you're gonna see it at the end, it looks like little rhomboids falling on the page. But I love it. I thought it just makes the stamp stand out. So you're gonna see that I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna detail the little rhomboids using sky blue, which is the color that I use on the background, and that's what having a soft background is gonna make these little rhomboids stand out. I'm actually gonna use also aquamarine because there's a little bit of mint and teal that this collection have, and I want to take advantage of that. Like I said, a more masculine palette, and also sapphire because it has quite a bit of blue. And again, I'm documenting my son, and these are colors that are going to go beautifully with that kind of, it's a soft violet kind of pinkish tone that some of the ephemera has, and it's gonna make it stand out. So again, I'm just gonna keep coloring. I'm gonna take it off camera to finish, just because it took me a while, but I'm gonna make sure that I color it. I'm gonna set it aside to dry, and while that's drying, I'm gonna work on creating my paper layers for the picture. Like I said before, I transformed the picture from color to black and white, so that everything is coherent and it goes nicely on the page. I'm gonna back my picture with this paper is called Kind Hearts, and the B side of that paper has that beautiful kind of, it's a yellow tone with this big rhomboid. So I'm gonna frame my picture with that. That's gonna make it stand out. And then I'm gonna add pieces of paper or more layers. One of them is from the, oh my god, this paper's name is, I have it right here and I'm looking at it, sorry, but it has a flower, it's called Better Things Are Ahead. And the B side, it's actually, I used the A side to create the other layout that's on the blog today, but the B side has this blue color with some florals, and it's okay, the florals are not going to be noticeable. You're just going to see the combination of that blue with the white. And then I'm going to use the 6x6 paper pad. I want the smaller format of the You Are Stronger paper, and that's the minty paper with all the sayings. And I want to create another layer of paper for my picture using the smaller scale of the bigger paper. And because those are the colors that you see in the background, the navy, you see a little bit of the minty and the soft blue. Once I have that in place, I added a little bit of foam adhesive between the layers just to make sure the picture stands out. And then I'm gonna go into embellishing. One of the things that you're gonna see me add is a small frame, and that's from the ephemera pack. It's gonna help me create that cluster on the top right corner of the picture. Once I have that, I'm gonna glue it straight onto my page, and then I'm gonna start embellishing. And like I said before, part of the inspiration for this layout, and even though you're gonna see that everything that I've used has straight lines, was the circle, this cardstock sticker that I'm working with right now. It says remote learning, has a small computer and a book, and it's pretty much what my kids, both of them, have been doing lately. So I'm gonna use that kind of a sentiment subtitle on this page, and I'm gonna place the big cluster on the bottom left corner of the picture, and you're gonna see that I'm actually gonna play with circle embellishment. So I added that little heart in the mint, and just to make sure that I have kind of the same idea, I'm actually gonna, I went and looked on my little stash and like on the collection for embellishments that were round. So I found that little house with the heart in the ephemera pack, and that green sticker is from the sticker combo. Then I went into the 6x6 paper pad, and there's a paper full of circles, so I really punched one that had the rainbow but in the tones of purple, just because I want to make sure that I have the color represented in each one of the clusters. Once I have that, pretty much my embellishments on my picture are done. I'm gonna work on the title. One of the things that stood out for me was the HOMEBODY ephemera, and literally I call my kids, this is the HOMEBODY school, because they spend their days on pajamas learning at home, either on their beds or on the couch or on the table. Wherever you see them, they're pretty much wearing pajamas in the morning. So it's called a HOMEBODY. So I'm gonna use like I said, once I pulled the ephemera, I went and found this little grouping of houses, and it has the same colors that I'm using. So I'm gonna put it as part of my title. Then I'm gonna use the word HOMEBODY, and then I'm gonna bring the mini alpha, and I'm gonna to put the word school, but I'm gonna make sure that I bring some of the yellow that I have in the frame. And you're gonna see where, like, I'm a firm believer on repetition, and what I love about this alpha is that the circles, or the O's in this case, are beautiful round circles. So it's gonna help me repeat that circle motion that I have on the ephemera. After that, you're gonna see that I added a little sentiment from the stickers that says try harder, or this is hard, sorry. And then just to elongate the layout, I'm actually gonna create a little cluster, not a cluster, but a detail at the top of the page. For that, all I did is cut a little notch on the paper, folded the edges into the page, and then I'm gonna cut a strip of the 6x6 paper pattern, is the one that has all the houses, and I'm gonna invert it so that it looks like a little stripe of rainbows at the top of the page. And I'm gonna move the paper so that the lines show the same colors that I'm using on the layout. And then you're gonna see that once I have it in place, I'm actually gonna staple the edges together, and here I'm gonna add enamel dots. Some of them are gonna cover the staple at the top, and then I'm just gonna add them to some of the clusters just to help me with that big brownness. And then you're gonna see that I know where my lines of journal are gonna go. They're gonna go at the bottom right corner of the picture. I have that white space there, so that's exactly the perfect place for them. And then I'm gonna bring this, I think it's called the Simply Sentiments. This is the U set. There's beautiful sentiments in it, and I'm gonna use something that says believe anything is possible, try better. Where's the other one that I use? See all the possibilities. I'm just gonna use it to accent my title. I'm gonna use it as part of the embellishments. I'm gonna use it also to just add on to my title. You're not gonna see it here. I'm gonna do it off camera, and then I just love it. But I'm using the sapphire ink from the mini ink cube set, just because I want to stay within the family of colors. And once I stamped it on my title, I knew I had to repeat it throughout the page. So I'm gonna make sure that I put it pretty much in each one of the clusters. And you're gonna see that the last one that I add, I'm actually gonna put it above the big circle cardstock sticker that I have, so I'm gonna invert it and it actually fit the right size of the picture, and that's about it. I love how this turned out. I love the collection. I think there's a lot you're gonna do and you're gonna love it, and I cannot wait to see what you create with it. Don't forget to jump onto the blog to see the other layout that I created for today's post. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember that you can check all the materials that I use in the shop, and thank you so much. Take care, guys.